Ready for a deep dive today? We're tackling a pretty big name in AI, Geoffrey Hinton.
Definitely a fascinating figure.
Hinton, born in 47, and get this, his great-great-grandfather was George Boole.
Wow, talk about a legacy. Boolean logic right in the family tree.
Exactly. But here's the thing, Hinton didn't go straight into computers. He actually earned a degree in experimental psychology first.
Interesting. Almost a detour before the main event.
And even spent some time as a carpenter. Imagine the man who would shape the future of AI, building furniture.
Makes you wonder how those experiences, those different ways of thinking, might have influenced his approach to AI.
Definitely food for thought. But eventually, he circled back, got his PhD in artificial intelligence in 78.
78, that's what, almost 50 years ago? AI was a very different beast back then.
A totally different world.
And the area he chose to focus on deep learning, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly the hot topic in research.
Not exactly met with open arms, huh? For those of us who aren't AI experts, could you break down what deep learning actually is?
Sure. Imagine the human brain, right? Billions of neurons, all interconnected. Deep learning tries to mimic that with artificial neural networks. These networks, they learn from data, they spot patterns, and they can make decisions, sort of like our own brains.
Sounds revolutionary, so why wasn't everyone on board back then?
Well, a few reasons. One big one, computers back then just weren't powerful enough to handle the kind of heavy lifting that deep learning needs.
Not enough juice to run those algorithms.
Exactly. Like trying to run a modern video game on a really old computer just wouldn't work well. Plus, deep learning needs a ton of data.
And I'm guessing data wasn't quite as abundant in the 70s as it is now?
Not even close. No internet, no smartphones, no social media, constantly spitting out information. It was a different world.
So Hinton's advocating for this radical new approach when most folks are sticking to the tried and true.
Pretty much. He was definitely ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
But like any good pioneer, he stuck with it. He believed in deep learning, even when it wasn't popular.
A true believer. And that belief, as we'll see, would eventually pay off in a big, big way.
Things really started to shift for Hinton and deep learning around the late 90s, early 2000s.
The internet was blowing up back then. Was that the turning point? More computing power, more data?
Exactly. It was the perfect storm. Hinton's research group at the University of Toronto, they started making some serious waves.
This is where things get really exciting, right? What were those breakthroughs that put deep learning on the map?
Okay, so there's backpropagation.
Sounds complicated.
It's actually pretty simple when you break it down. Imagine you're teaching a dog a trick. You give it treats, little rewards, to guide it towards what you want it to do.
Right, positive reinforcement.
Exactly. Backpropagation is like that, but for neural networks. You're fine-tuning the connections between those artificial neurons, rewarding the network for getting closer to the right answer.
Training a digital brain with virtual treats. I like it. But I know Hinton also did a lot of work with convolutional neural networks. Those sound a bit more complex.
They are, but think about how we see. We don't process a whole image all at once, right?
No, we focus on shapes and edges and textures.
Exactly. Our brains pick out features. Convolutional neural networks, or CNNs, they kind of work the same way. They break down images into smaller parts, analyzing each part for those key features.
So that's how we got those fun filters on our phones that can recognize our faces.
That's part of it, yeah.
Huh.
And things like self-driving cars that can navigate a street. It all goes back to Hinton's work on CNNs.
Wow. And then there are deep belief networks, or DBNs. Those were another one of Hinton's big contributions. What's the deal with those?
DBNs are like master organizers. They're really good at taking complex information and breaking it down into simpler parts, almost like sorting a messy room into labeled boxes.
So instead of getting overwhelmed by tons of data, DBNs create order, making sense of it all.
Exactly. And that's key for understanding those really complicated patterns and making predictions.
Predictions like what?
Oh, anything from predicting stock market trends to understanding the spread of diseases, even recommending your next favorite song.
It's amazing to think that one person could have such a huge impact on such a complex field.
It is remarkable. And it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
Hinton also did pioneering work with recursive neural networks, or RNNs, which are great at dealing with language, text and speech.
Because language is all about sequence, right? One word after another, building on each other.
You got it. RNNs are designed to capture that flow, which makes them perfect for things like language translation or speech recognition.
Wow, it's like he was giving AI the tools to understand not just what we see, but how we communicate. And then there's capsule networks, right?
Yes. Capsule networks. They try to overcome some limitations of CNNs by representing objects and their relationships more intuitively, mimicking how our brains perceive the world in 3D.
Mind-blowing stuff. But all of this was still happening while he was at the University of Toronto, right?
That's right. He
Oh.
built a real hub for AI research there, mentoring a new generation of scientists who've gone on to do amazing things,
But then Silicon Valley came calling.
as it often does. In 2013, Google recognized Hinton's brilliance and brought him on board.
A match made in tech heaven.
Definitely a win-win. Google got a leader in the field, and Hinton got access to, well, the resources and platform of Google.
It's hard to imagine a better place for an AI pioneer to be. What happened once he landed at Google? Did things accelerate even more?
Oh, absolutely. Google was the perfect environment for Hinton to really push the boundaries. And it was during his time there that he, along with two other AI giants, Yoshua Bengio and Jan LeCun, received one of the highest honors in computer science, the Turing Award.
The Turing Award. That's a huge deal. Like winning the Nobel Prize, but for computer science. And speaking of Nobels, wasn't there a connection to the Nobel Prize in Physics just last year?
That's right. The 2024 Physics Nobel recognized some groundbreaking work in, you guessed it, artificial intelligence. It shows you just how far Hinton's field has come, from those early days to the global stage.
It's mind-blowing to think about how fast things are moving, but all this progress, it's not without its downsides, right? That article you shared, it talks about Hinton retiring from Google at 75. And it wasn't just a quiet retirement, was it?
Not at all. Hinton's departure, it made headlines. He didn't hold back on voicing his concerns about where AI was headed, especially if it ended up in the wrong hands.
So he's basically saying, hey, I helped build this incredibly powerful technology, and now I'm worried about what it could do.
Pretty much. And coming from someone like him, someone who dedicated his life to AI, it was a wake-up call for a lot of people. He wasn't afraid to challenge the industry he'd helped to create.
Because at the end of the day, it's about more than just algorithms and breakthroughs, right? It's about making sure AI serves humanity, not the other way around.
Exactly. And that's a big part of Hinton's legacy. He's pushing us to think about the ethical side of AI, the responsibility that comes with such powerful tools.
Makes you wonder what a guy like Geoffrey Hinton does in retirement. Is he tinkering away in his garage, still dreaming up new AI breakthroughs?
Well, based on what we're seeing, retirement might just be a new chapter for him. He's still out there, engaging in the AI world, sharing his thoughts and concerns.
So what's next for a guy who's already achieved so much? What kind of challenges are captivating a mind like his these days?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it? Maybe he's searching for solutions to those ethical dilemmas he's been talking about. Or perhaps he's exploring entirely new areas of research, trying to answer questions we haven't even thought to ask yet.
Whatever he's up to, one thing's for sure. The world will be watching. Geoffrey Hinton's story, it reminds us that real innovation often comes from challenging the status quo, from not being afraid to embrace the unknown, from pushing the boundaries of what's considered possible. It's a story about the power of dedication, curiosity, and a willingness to stick with an idea even when the world doubts you. And it's a reminder that the future of AI, it's not written yet. It's being shaped right now by the choices we make, the questions we ask, and the actions we take. So the next time you encounter AI in your daily life, maybe it's a chatbot or facial recognition or something else entirely, but take a moment to think about the pioneers like Geoffrey Hinton, the minds that paved the way for this incredible technology. And as we continue this deep dive into the world of AI, let's remember to do so with open minds, critical thinking, and commitment to harnessing the power of technology for the greater good. That's it for this deep dive, folks. Until next time, keep those brains engaged and remember the future is ours to shape.